The Brian and Kenzie Show.
On Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. Time for Kenzie's Crimes. When she brings a crime from the Chicagoland or Illinois area that me and Case, the producer, know nothing about, and maybe you don't either, or maybe you know a little bit about it, but because of her deep dive, her research, her tenacity to find more information about a crime, you are just going to sit back around the campfire with us all while we hear the story.
Spooky little crackling. Okay, thank you.
Well, I feel so cozy now.
Yes, okay, I'm enjoying that. Thank you for setting my scene. Very much so. Now, Karen and Paul Snider were two young lovebirds all the way back in 1966. Now, off the top of your head, did those names ring a bell to you, Brian?
They do not to me.
How about you, Case?
Not a chance.
Okay. Karen and Paul had been married for a little over a year. Karen was 18 and Paul was 23. So, I mean, you're really behind the 8 ball in marriage if you think about it this way, Case.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to frame that. Good to know.
Okay. Get to it. Girls been waiting for that ring.
Yeah.
I've heard about it.
I know. I'm here to help. Anyways, the couple just welcomed their first child, a daughter that they named Paula. This is kind of funny because, for me, when I read this, because you know how Will Smith named his daughter Willow and their son, because Jada is named Jaden, they kind of did this because his name's Paul and they named their daughter Paula.
Huh.
Kind of the trendsetters, if you will.
I guess.
Now, while Paul worked afternoons and evenings for the railroad, Karen stayed home to care for their child, who was just 2.5 months old. The young couple lived in Calumet City in the 400 block of Wilson Street. Okay. Now, around 11 p.m. on November 12th, 1966, Paul Snider headed home from his shift at the rail yard. Now, he found himself a little more anxious to get home because during his shift, which had started at 3 p.m., he had placed several calls home in an attempt to contact his wife. Each time the phone rang, and each time it was never answered.
Huh. That's a very disturbing feeling.
Right, because this is before you could shoot off text or be like, well, they made a Facebook status. So you couldn't do those kind of things. So it's like you really needed that phone to be answered, right?
Yeah.
Now, furthering his concern, Paul's parents, Frank and Elizabeth Snider, who lived just a few houses away, had knocked on the front door around 8 p.m., and the door was not answered.
Yikes.
Now, when Paul arrived home for that night, he immediately noticed that the home's blinds were shut and the front porch light was off. Now, this struck him as super unusual because Karen never failed to leave the porch light on for him when he was supposed to arrive home late at night, which was pretty often. Paul entered through the home's unlocked front door. Inside, he found Paula asleep in her portable playpen. She was in front of the living room television, and he noticed the TV guide was open to that evening's lineup, and it sat right on top of the playpen. He was relieved, of course, to find his daughter totally unharmed and just fast asleep. But then he quickly turned his attention to Karen because she was nowhere in sight.
By the way, the kid was probably watching Seinfeld, right? The Thursday night lineup, probably right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Seinfeld Friends.
Well,
anyway.
it's a show about nothing, you see.
Cheers.
That's why I'm afraid Paula didn't hear what you're about to tell us next.
Well, hopefully it wasn't the last episode of MASH because that's just sad.
Ooh,
I know.
a rough
exactly.
episode.
Amen. Now, upstairs, Paul made his way to the couple's bedroom. I'm going to pause it right there, actually.
Really? This quick you're pausing it?
I'm going to pause it. Yes.
Okay, well, when we come back, you'll find out what he found in the bedroom. It's Brian and Kenzie on Q101.
Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. Kenzie, as usual, with Kenzie's Crimes, with a cliffhanger of what's going on in in this crime from the Chicagoland area. And I'll take you from there.
All right, so quick recap, if you're just joining us. This young couple, Karen and Paul Snider, lived in Calumet City, 400 block of Wilson Street. This is back in 1966. They were a young couple. They had a 2.5-month-old daughter. And Paul kind of rushed home from work one night after his wife really hadn't answered the entire day. He had called. His parents had showed up at the house. He came running in the door, saw his daughter totally asleep in her playpen, doing just fine, but no sign of his wife. So Paul made his way to the couple's bedroom upstairs. He turned on the lamp, and as the room flooded with light, Paul was met with the sight of the room in shambles, blood everywhere, and Karen on the floor.
Ooh.
Paul immediately went downstairs, grabbed their daughter, called the police, and exited the home. But got her out immediately because it was pretty apparent that there was no way to help Karen, right? So when police showed up, they discovered Karen had suffered 125 stab wounds.
What?
Yes.
Yikes.
125. They also saw in a downstairs bathroom a pile of bloody laundry in the bathtub, 2 pairs of slacks, a washcloth, and a sheet. It is believed that Karen's attacker used the items in an attempt to clean the blood from their hands and clothing. So they were like scrubbing themselves down, scrubbing the floor and things like that. They threw it in the bathtub. Missing from their home was Karen's blue leather wallet, which according to Paul only contained about $50 in cash. Now it was more back then. $50, it's 1966, but still not life-changing money even back then.
I mean,
right?
you go to Jewel today with $50, you're coming out with like 3 things.
You owe them money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be an IOU situation.
But back then, you probably got like a pallet of food for like a month back then.
But like not, I mean, again, not life-changing. This isn't like, let me rob this household for
and
50.
kill somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only other item that appeared to have been taken, which is super weird, the Sniders had a pair of matching table lamps that were not expensive, not worth a lot of money. They were in the living room, and Karen's killer had taken one of them. One of the lamps.
Were they like the Christmas Story lamp with the woman's leg?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Why is that the only reason it would be acceptable in your mind?
I'd want that.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Thank you for that. Now, police questioned Karen's family, friends, and neighbors. During the interviews with Paul's parents, Elizabeth, Paul's mom, told investigators that shortly before her death, Karen had confided in her that she was scared of living in the home. Though she did not specify why, Karen had told her mother-in-law she wanted to return home to Cedar Lake, Indiana, where her parents lived. Now, Paul was initially labeled as a possible suspect, especially because they concluded that the break-in seemed staged. There was a bloody trail that led from a broken window and almost like fake gouges made near a lock to make it appear that someone had broken in. And it was proved to be a setup. However, when testing the 2 blood types that were present, one ended up being Karen's, which was type A. The other was type O. Paul's matched neither. And with other investigations with him being at work and stuff, he was cleared.
Well, that's weird.
So now they're like, who would do this? There didn't seem to be any real motive. She was not assaulted in any way, if someone's wondering. So the motive seems super unclear. It's like they just killed her and got $50, left the daughter. A very, very strange scenario. Several more possible suspects were brought in for questioning, including an unnamed 23-year-old local man that police labeled as suspect number 1. According to them, on the night of Karen's murder, the man had sought help at a local hospital for a severe cut on his hand, and according to the man's medical records, his blood type was O.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, furthering investigators' suspicions, they learned that the unnamed suspect was an acquaintance of Paul and Karen. Paul actually worked with the man, and he had visited the home several times in the past. Now, this is an important detail, right? Because it seemed as if there wasn't an actual break-in.
Yeah.
So if he had visited before and Karen wasn't suspecting anything of this man, maybe she opened the door willingly. You remember, Paul walked into an unlocked house.
Maybe
okay?
maybe he had some Doritos and some Faygo and said, "You want to hang out? Well, your hubby's at work." Maybe he did something like that. And she let him in.
I don't think that was it. Maybe he was going to fix like a sink or something. But anywho.
Either way.
I don't think he brought over Doritos. I wouldn't open the door for that.
Really? If I brought Doritos over, you wouldn't open the door?
If you were at the door, I wouldn't open it.
Oh,
you
that's
know
too
what I'm
bad.
saying? Okay.
That's really too bad.
Just across the board.
Case, if I brought Doritos over, would you let me in?
I don't know. It depends what flavor.
I think it would just stay locked.
Yeah, right.
You know? Now, they went and questioned this unnamed man's wife, and she confirmed that on the night of the murder, he had come home late, drunk, with his hand stitched up, nasty cuts on his forehead, other bruises and scratches on his arms, and he seemed really, really shaky and odd, like very odd behavior coming from her husband. Now, the man was questioned. However, he denied having any knowledge of Karen's murder. Not a big surprise. Most times they're not like, you asked me.
Yeah, I did it.
According to him, he had left the tavern that evening, and while walking home, he had tripped over a tree stump. As he continued to bleed, he said he sought help at a local hospital before returning home late that evening. And honestly, with no other evidence against him, he was eventually released.
Okay.
The case then went cold for nearly 6 decades.
60 years?
And that is until right now, this May, like the past few days.
What?
A direct quote from a family member. I was at work one day. I was reading up on the case, and I was like, all right, maybe after 57 years, some sort of technology can be used to figure out who committed this crime. That's Kevin Seeley. That was one of Snider's family members. A pair of Calumet City detectives found critical information stored in the department's evidence locker. Everything was still there. So there was a lot of blood evidence available and obviously the case files. So detectives submitted the bloody clothing to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, then went to Missouri with a search warrant and obtained a DNA sample from 79-year-old James Barbier. Now that is the unnamed man that they let go almost 6 decades ago.
Wow.
He was a co-worker to them. He has officially been charged with Snider's murder because the blood matched up. He is set to appear in court May 21st. Detectives interviewed him. They said that he indicated he knew that this day would come eventually. Their daughter Paula is still alive, and she said it was the best phone call she ever received.
Wow.
Is that not insane?
That is nuts.
Could you imagine? She never got to know her parents. You're 2.5 months old. My son is now new one. That was 10. The new baby is already older than that.
Not used one.
No, yeah, it's 10. He's better already seen things. But he just hit 3 months. So to think even younger than him, of course. She never got to really know her parents.
Yeah.
To know the tragedy that happened. She got to know her dad, but he actually passed away at 45 years old, really young.
Whoa.
And she claims that she believes it was completely because of the stress it put on her life. So never got to know her mom, got to know her dad, but he was kind of stricken with grief for so long. To receive this is such a gift. I'm so happy for her. She seems like an awesome person. And my heart melted when she said it was the best phone call she ever received.
When they caught up with the 79-year-old guy, was he eating Doritos, by the way?
I don't know. They failed to mention that detail.
That's a shame.
And I apologize that I dropped the ball on that one.
Well, maybe the update will have that in there. They caught him. He was eating Doritos, and he said, I was waiting for this day.
If the news stations are like, update, he's eating Doritos, I will bring it up to you.
It'd be funny if he went like, oh, I was just waiting for this day. I knew it'd come someday. He's like shoving Doritos in his mouth. Listen, if I was thinking about I murdered somebody for 60 years every day, I'd be eating Doritos every day to cope. Like that stress eating, they call it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a good point.
You were stressed when you had to sell a pair of concert tickets you couldn't go to.
Oh, my
we
God.
heard about it for like 3 weeks. Could you imagine if you killed somebody? Oh, my God. Honestly, who would suffer more than me if you think about it?
The stress levels will be through the roof.
Oh, God, hand me a bag of Cool Ranch stat.
Oh, boy. Great Kenzie Krimes.
Thank you. Now, I love that people. This one came from Case. Thanks so much, Case, for your hard work.
I got you.
Thanks for sending me an article. But
oh, wow.
If you have a story that you want to hear, most of the ones I've done have been listeners submitted about something that happened in their small town, something they remember from they were a kid. Even if you don't know a lot about it, if you want to know more, so you're like, I've always heard about this murder. I don't know what happened or this crazy crime. So definitely feel free to hit us up on that text line through in 591-8300.
Or, DM us however way you want to do it.
You could slide in my DMs with the story idea.
Well,
Not your penis.
No.
I've got a story idea with that, too.
Don't write it on your penis.
No.
Because then I'm going to have to zoom in. It's going to suck.
So my penis should be arrested. Let me tell you, for the crimes it's committed.
It's done some bad things.
You guys, that sounds awful. Like, because your penis could do really bad things. Do you realize that?
No, mine's pretty nice. By the way, Chris checked in on the text line. He said, did they find the lamp?
Oh, my God.
No information on the lamp yet. 60 years later that the guy stole. Because stealing one end table is weird. One end table
lamp.
one lamp was gone off the end table, and the other one was just sitting there. There was another one.
He obviously liked it.
That's what I'm saying.
There was really no rhyme or reason. Someone else said, did he say why he did it? I mean, he didn't. So this was obviously premeditated because he knew that he worked with her husband and knew he was going to be at work. So that's a really important detail. He'd visited the house a bunch. Some people crave doing this type of thing.
Also, he may have had a thing for her. He got over there. She rejected the advances, and then...
Yeah, and then he got angry about it. He was drunk. I do believe he was drunk.
Yeah.
And then he tried to... And nothing really made sense, because then he tried to make it look more like a break-in. I think he was worried that they would connect the dots, that he's able to just get in the house.
Yeah.
Then goes home to his wife, and he's all beat up. I mean, he was He wasn't a smart criminal.
Well,
He didn't do a great job.
he did evade it for 60 years.
Well,
and
that was due to not technological advancements.
Yeah.
Like if he committed that crime now, if that personality existed now, he would have been caught in like 4 seconds.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So there probably be an update because it's local and they're in court right
Yes.
now with it. So there'll probably be an update on that.
I mean, I would say without a doubt there's gonna be conviction. Even he admitting to the police, I knew this day would come once. He's not like, what are you talking about?
Wild.
Yeah.
All right, so coming up here at 9 o'clock, we have another chance to get you to the Hinterland Music Festival with Noah Kahn, Vampire Weekend, Hozier, and tons in Iowa. So that's coming up at 9. Also coming up, we have to pour one out. This may be the most important actor in my life passed away this week. And I've been devastated. I haven't even been able to talk about it. It happened. We could have talked about it yesterday. So it happened over the weekend. And I couldn't talk about it. An actor that had such an impact.
Elizabeth Berkley?
No, Elizabeth Berkley's alive.
Did something happen to Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn's good.
Oh,
Well,
thank
you
God.
love Showgirls, so I thought maybe.
I understand. You're right. That's a good guess. And Vince Vaughn's a good guess. It's not them, but this person passed away. And today I'm going to talk about it because otherwise I got to muster it up to talk about it today.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman's still good.
You love
I
doing
do.
his voice.
I will tell you that when I met Brian that time, I didn't think much of the man. That was my first thought.
Well, that sounds spot on. If he did meet you. Me and Morgan are on the same page.
All right, coming up at 8:50, I'll tell you who it is, and maybe it affected you the same way it affected me. She, I should say, it was a woman. She affected me this way, and we'll talk about it here at 8:50.
The Brian and Kenzie Show.
On Q 101.